Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today I want to discuss a story that recently made headlines in Brazil's social networks as well as in the news. It's amazing to me how stories blow up like this. And I always like to cover these because oftentimes these are topics that I've already covered on the blog and as well as the channel. So this is just another example of a topic that I've covered numerous times in the past. And as this story, I'm not saying it's a top news story, but it is just something that people are talking about in social networks. So let me just get into this story because this just broke like a couple days ago. I just learned about it yesterday, so I definitely got to talk about it. As I said, talking about Brazil from the perspective of race. So today's story. Don't call me a morena. I am a black woman. Journalist Maria Coutinho elegantly checks talk show host on her color. Viewers back her up. More than that, they just back her up. They went in. So let's just check out some of what people are talking about in this particular story. So on the left here, you have Maria Coutinho, and this is Ana Braga, Ana Maria Braga. She's a longtime host of a morning talk show that comes on Brazil's top television network, Rede Global, or TV Global, however you want to call it. And I've known about Ana Maria Braga's talk show for years. I mean, it seems like she's been on this talk show called Mais Você. I don't know how many years, but she's been on this program as long as I've started following the whole situation with Brazil. There was a time when I had Global Not Internacional, and I used to get global television, in my home in Michigan. It's been a long time. I can't say when she actually started this program. I just know that this woman's been on this program for as long as I've been into Brazil. So I'm saying probably at least since the year 2000, I would say 2001. I'm not sure. I didn't look that up, but I'm just saying this woman's been on this program probably at least 2 decades or more. So let's get in. So what happened here? Let me just talk a little bit about this so you can get full context because obviously if you're in the English speaking world, most of you probably don't know either one of these personalities. Maria Coutinho, Maria Julia Coutinho, and when she started making ascension in her roles on the global TV news network, one of her colleagues, one of the top known, most well known journalists in the country, William Bonner, he put her name together. Called her first name and middle name are Maria Julia, and her last name is Coutinho. So he took Maria and Julia and just made the name Maju. So people know her as Maju as an affectionate nickname. So Maria Julia Coutinho, I've seen her career just explode, particularly in the last decade or so. I remember when I first became aware of her, because I remember seeing her when I had Global International when I was still living in Michigan. Well, I'm in Michigan now, but I lived in Sao Paulo for 9 years and came back to Michigan. But when I first started watching uh, news on Global, I remember she started off as like a reporter on the street. She would talk to people on the streets, get their opinions about stuff. A lot of people start off as street reporters, and as time goes on, they eventually move into the newsroom. Sometimes they become an anchor on a news program or whatever. So Machu started off, as far as I remember, she was just doing street reporting. Then eventually, after X amount of years on Global on the streets, they moved her inside the newsroom where she started doing the weather. She became the weather girl. She did that for a little while, and then eventually she moved into substituting for the anchors on the main news program, like particularly one of the top news programs in the country is called Jornal Nacional. So Maju's career has exploded, particularly in the last decade. But when she came off the streets, I'll never forget. And she started doing the weather. Her first appearances on that program, she just in a Brazil that says they're not racist. I mean, she started getting all sorts of racist hate, uh, disparaging racist comments all on social networks. I had to report on that. It was pretty ugly. Her co-hosts were like, we stand behind Maju, we support Maju. And it's like, this is just another example that used to crack me up. It's like Brazil all these years always denied that, Brazilians can be racist. But yet here it was just like openly people calling her monkey and look at her ugly hair. Why you got this, this negrinha feia, this ugly black woman on television, in the news, doing the weather. What's she doing there? It's another situation where we've seen this over and over again. Let's just be real about it. Most white Brazilians that you talk to about this, it's always a situation of first denial. We don't have racism here. Then if they can't deny because it's clear, particularly in the social media era where everything is just exposed, everybody has video cameras now. You can't deny it. So then the next step of denial is to say, okay, I know racist people, but I'm myself, I'm not racist. It was a story I did some years ago, and this is a story that continues to pop up every few years saying, okay, 90% of Brazilians, or whatever the number is, 92, 93% say, yes, racism does exist in Brazil, but I'm not racist. 92, 93% of Brazilians say, oh, well, racism exists, and I know somebody who's racist, but I'm not. So everybody knows racism is there, but they refuse to acknowledge that they themselves could possibly be racist, right? The other thing I want to point out here, so when Maria Julia became the weather girl, they accepted her after a while, but when she first started appearing on the news, they were going in on her, and Brazil's racism was like on front page for everybody to see it. Now, the other thing is, Ana Maria Braga has been known for certain gaffes that she's made on television, and people always come after her, like, what are you talking about? How dare you say something like that? She's just been, there's been a number of reports of people taking offense to some things that she said, either just off the cuff comments or whatever. So I'm not surprised that something like this has happened, but today is going to speak to a particular situation, a cultural standard that you have in Brazil that I want to talk a little bit about, because this has changed over the last decade or so. I mean, even 2 decades, you could say. But let me just get into the story. So when something is relatively common in a given culture, you can kind of expect that it often happens and will probably continue to happen. When I regularly wrote on the Black Brazil Today blog, sometimes I didn't have the time to do a post about a given topic, and soon days would go by, then weeks, and then I would just kind of put the story on the back burner. But what would often happen was that sooner or later, another incident similar to the one I put on the back burner would become a hot topic on social networks, social media, which would give me a chance to approach not only the new incident, but the incident that I didn't originally cover as well. This is the case with today's story. It's hard to believe how fast time flies, and this is the case with the story I wanted to originally post some months ago. Looking for that post today, I realized that 3 months had passed since I originally wanted to post that topic. Fortunately, with the new topic that I'm going to talk about today, I have the chance to revisit that post from July. So let's discuss. Okay. So back in July, I saw a few videos by a guy who developed a pretty sizable audience with his comedic skits. The name of the IG channel is Carioquice Negra, right? Carioquice, he's just basically it's you define a person from Rio as a carioca. So he's making light of he's changing the term. It's like something of the black carioca, right? And the guy's name is Julio Gissá. I discovered his channel after a few channels had already shared his content. The one I wanted to focus on was a pair of videos he made in which he walked around at an event addressing Black women with the term morena. I've talked a lot about morena since I've been doing this channel, and as well as, how long the blog has been up since 2012. The usage of the term morena and its masculine version moreno is a topic that I've discussed for some time on the blog as well as on this YouTube channel. So let me explain. So as you can see, this is one of his videos. This is part 2. This might be part 1, but it says he's talking to the girl right here, obviously a Black woman. He says, "You as a morena woman, e do nada chamava elas de morenas." So he's popping up, just talking to various Black women, and he's addressing them as morenas. So I thought it was an intriguing skit. So let's just dive a little bit more into this as to why this is important, because obviously in the English speaking world, we don't use the term morena, but we'll explore that a little bit more for those of you who may not be familiar with it. These are some of the articles that I've done in the past that discuss this very topic. One article from 2015, "But you're not Black, you're morena. How the denial of identity is symptomatic of structural racism in Brazilian society." Here's another one, "Don't call me morena, I'm Black. How the term morena intentionally dilutes one's visible racial identity." "She's not morena here. She's not morena. No. Why you shouldn't be afraid of calling a Black person Black." "How did you discover ser negra, being Black, making the transition from brown to Black?" Here's another one, "Mulata morena, not anymore. the power and liberation of recognizing oneself as Black. So, as I've said repeatedly over the years, Black Brazilians or persons of visible African ancestry have always been taught to deny that they are Black. You know, it's something to be ashamed of to define yourself as Black. Why would you define yourself as Black? It's common to hear people say, "Oh, you're so pretty. Why would you call yourself Black?" I have articles on the blackbraziltoday.com blog where there's been a number of celebrities who've talked about this. In the news, you'll see them actually refer to these women as morenas. And a lot of these women take issue with it, like, don't call me morena, don't call me mulata. I am a negra, I am a preta, both of which means Black. The transition that Afro-Brazilians have made from denying their being Black, until affirming and demanding that they be defined as Black. Because years ago in Brazil, calling somebody a negra or a preta, distinctly meaning Black, it was considered an insult. It's saying that that person is ugly, that person is stupid, that person has lower value in society. So a lot of people did not want to be defined as negro preto, or in the feminine negra or preta, because it was distinctly Black. But with the rise of Black identity politics, people are adamantly rejecting the term moreno, masculine, and morena, feminine. Like, no, don't be afraid to call somebody Black. It's a badge of honor. This is something we have a lot of pride in. So I've seen a direct transition from avoiding Blackness to assuming one's Blackness. So this is what's going on with today's post. This just recently happened in on this talk show. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but to elaborate on this point a little more, I wanted to show you a few scenes from a video by Julio Gissá, the guy that I was just talking about, to emphasize the point. At an event, the comic will approach various Black women and refer to them as morena, pretty morena, or something like that. So just watch as each woman seems to take offense to the term. You know, watch them like jerk their neck, look at him with shock, like, what did you just call me? Who are you calling a morena, right? It says, watch as these women seems to take offense to the term. They stop the comic in his tracks and responds with comebacks like, morena, who you calling a morena? F out of here, respect me, I'm Black, I am negra, I am preta. Morena, no. What's up with that? The women check the comedian on the term morena and define themselves as either negra or preta, both meaning Black. Now, I can't say with any certainty that these interviews were real or they were just skits that were planned and acted out, but it doesn't really matter, because in the past few decades, with the rise of Black identity politics in Brazil, many Black men and women have rejected the terms morena and moreno for terms that signify they identify with Blackness, meaning preto, preta, or negro, negra. I often compare this transition in Brazil to an era in the United States when Black Americans began to reject terms such as colored and Negro for the racially conscious term Black. This brings me to today's story. So again, you have Maju here, Ana Maria Braga here. They're both on the Hedgie Global Network. This woman has a daytime talk show. And this woman today, she's gone from being a street reporter to the weather girl to the part-time anchor on the top news programs. Now she is a host, if I'm not mistaken, on the Sunday evening news journal called Fantástico. It's been on Hedgie Global for some years. I don't know, the closest thing I could compare it to is something like a 60 Minutes type report. So she's been hosting that for a minute. So Maju's career has just exploded, particularly in the last decade. She's really made some strides in finding success in the world of journalism. So what happened? Ana Maria Braga calls Maria Coutinho morena, and it infuriates viewers. A lot of people were just commenting that Ana Maria Braga, she doesn't learn, or she never learns, right? As I said, this isn't the first gaffe that she's made on television. So today's story is courtesy of Diário do Nordeste and Portal UAI, or UAI. These are the websites that I'm using for today's story. So, in a recent program of the global television talk show Might As Well Say, the longtime host of the program, Ana Maria Braga, referred to journalist Maria Julia Coutinho, affectionately known as Maju, as morena. It set off a hailstorm of negative reactions, as we shall see. Let's discuss the story. Ana Maria Braga made a mistake with journalist Maria Coutinho in Mais Você this Tuesday, the 24th, causing controversy that has reverberated on social networks. During the interview, the host referred to the guest as a morena, who subtly corrected the term. And I got to give mad props to Maju for how she handled the situation. She didn't get ugly. She didn't scream. She didn't yell. She didn't stop the host in her tracks, but she just subtly checked her on television, you know? So how did she do that? The gaffe arose when the blonde made a comment about the trajectory of the TV Global journalist. This is Ana Maria. This is Ana Maria Braga speaking. She says, "You took a course. You didn't go there to do weather because you are beautiful, slender. You speak well, morena, beautiful." Talking about the weather forecast, you had to learn. So what she's saying here, she's trying to compliment her. Like Maju ascended. She studied. She had to learn how to become an anchor. She had to learn how to, report on the weather, because that's not something that she got into journalism necessarily to do. So she was, in a way, she was complimenting her about, you're beautiful. You speak well. I mean, sometimes people take that as like an offhand, like insult. Like, oftentimes you get people will think they're giving a black person a compliment by saying, "Oh, you speak so well." She may have or she may not have meant it that way, but it's something that you often hear. But she's trying to compliment her, how she rose in the ranks of global, but then she calls her a morena, right? Most black women in Brazil, maybe that's not fair to say. I can't speak for 100 million women, but even some people would say 25 to 50 million. It just depends on how many people you consider to be black in Brazil, which I don't think we'll ever really know. But there are a lot of black women in Brazil who take offense to being called morena, whereas back in the day, 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, being called a morena was considered a compliment. Okay. So let's look at how Maju handled this situation. The host of Fantástico, Maju, who was a black woman, didn't even point out her colleague's mistake, but corrected her indirectly, since morena should be a term directed to hair color, not skin tone. It's no use being negative. This is a Maju talking. It's no use being negative or black, wonderful, beautiful, and talking about the forecast. I have to learn, and I did, she replied. So she's just talking about how she had to put time in to learn how to, report the news on a national level. But you see what she did. She didn't get ugly about it. She just says, look, there's no use being negative. It's no use being black. Just saying, you can't just be beautiful and black. You have to know what you're talking about. So instead of checking the woman directly and making an issue out of it, she just calmly just like, look, she didn't even have to say, don't call me morena. She just says, look, as a black woman. It was really elegant the way that she handled that. But the people who were watching the show, they went in a little bit harder. So this was the exchange that went on. Obviously, I can't show the images is going on global because they'll definitely strike the video down. So, but this is the exchange that happened on television. In addition to her comments on Maju's skin color and race, one other thing I want to mention here is that a lot of people look at the term, as I've explained in various videos and posts, a lot of people look at the term morena. It depends on who you're talking to. I've heard people define black women as morena and white women with dark hair as morena, or even people who have a more mixed look can be defined as morena. What black women are saying is that no, a morena is a white woman with dark colored hair. We as African descendant people, we are black women. Don't call us morena. So there's been this back and forth. But if you look at some of the pictures, if you use the term morena in a Google search for images, just put in mulher morena, like, brown or morena woman in Brazil, in Portuguese, and most of the pictures you're going to see are going to look like white women with dark hair. But notice that every now and then they'll use the term morena to define a black woman. So this is where black women activists over the years have taken to, contesting being defined as morena. Like, don't call us morena, call us negra. We don't take shame in this term anymore. Call us negra, call us preta. We are black women. Leave the term morena for white women with dark hair. And this is what I'm saying. It's for, depending on who you're talking to, it can be confusing at times. You're talking to somebody who doesn't see it the way that you do. And you're trying to find, I've seen so many scenarios that women have described. It's like they're trying to catch a cab They talk to the taxi, to the Uber or whoever, and it says, well, who is it that you're looking for? Oh, I'm looking for that morena. And so then, who's the morena? It's like, oh, I was talking about her. Oh, but for somebody else, this is a black woman, but somebody else describes her as morena. So who are you talking about? It can get kind of confusing, which is why a lot of black women are rejecting this term morena to leave that with dark-haired white women. I hope that's not too confusing. It's still confusing to this day because it just depends on the eye of the person who's talking, how they look at this. So, as I said, in addition to her comments on Maju's skin color and race, Ana Maria also criticized the outfit that Maju wore at a global TV event for an advertising market that was held last Thursday, the 19th. This is her talking at Up Front, which was the name of the event. I didn't like the dress. This is what Ana Maria Braga said to Maju. She criticized. So Maju responds, "Oh, it was the brown one. I thought it was so elegant. I called it my nude. Basically the color of the dress was about the same color as her skin color. So she was like, this is the color brown. It's not a change of color, but I'm wearing those colors more," she explained. So then the host Braga ended that discussion with very chic. So I'm like, she called her Morena on TV, and Maju checked her for that. And then she's gonna tell her, like, I didn't like that dress. So it's like she just looked like she's just throwing shade at Maju, even though everything was all smiles and happy faces and all of this. But underneath, you see a little bit of tension going on there. Maju always carries herself with just class and elegance. So you're not going to see her get ugly about it. But, obviously she responded on the color thing. She definitely checked this woman. Like I said, she was cool about it, but viewers on the internet weren't so, subtle with it. Let's look at what the comments were saying. So this top comment over here says, starting the day with this Ana Maria calling Maju a morena. You got this other guy says, Ana Maria Braga, 30 years on TV, and she still calls a Maju a beautiful morena. This is just deleting her racial identity. Okay. That's what somebody else says. She already called Maju a morena 3 times. I didn't see that, but that's what apparently that's what she did. Called her morena 3 times on television. She said she didn't like her dress, the brown one, and Maju corrected her. All right. The next comment. The worst is that among older people, there's this horrible difficulty of saying that a person is black. My mother also does this. It seems that it's an offense in their view. I think it's valid to always correct whoever does this. This is what this person is saying. So you can see clearly today, a lot of people just aren't accepting anybody calling somebody black or morena or moreno, right? When Maju spoke softly, those who saw it didn't let it slide. In the social network X or Twitter, several comments emerged, mostly using the phrase, Ana Maria doesn't learn, or she never learns. And Ana Maria Braga has already messed up twice by avoiding calling Maria Coutinho black and calling her morena, said one of the comments. Next comment said, Ana Maria Braga calling Maju a beautiful morena is just not possible. She elegantly corrected her, posted another internet user. People seem afraid to call us black, said another on the social network. One other wrote, Anna, Maju is not a beautiful morena. She is a negra linda, a beautiful black woman, and responded to you without being rude and with wonderful class. It's worth noting that black movements, black social movements point out that calling black people morena or mulata is a form of whitening and a denial of identity. So what they're saying with this last point is that the terms like morena and mulata has been a way of trying to move the black population away from a black identity. People saw it in the past as a compliment. Like, you're so beautiful, that's why I call you a morena or a mulata. You're not as black as that person, or you're not as ugly as that person, or you're too beautiful to be considered black. That's why I call you morena or mulata. Because back in the day, a lot of black people, clearly black people in Brazil, were actually offended by being called black. Again, negro or preto, both meaning black in Portuguese. So I just wanted to share this article today because it speaks volumes for something I've reported on for years. This is The transition from all of these other terms that Brazil has always used for its black population, morena, mulata, mestiço, these types of terms. And black Brazilians have pushed back for years. Many people have made this transition from brown to black because a lot of these terms can actually be loosely translated as brown or mixed of some sort. As I've said, we'll never really know how many black people there are in Brazil because there's still a lot of people who use the term pardo, mestizo, mulatto, these types of terms. But I do agree there are millions of pardos in Brazil. This is why some of those pardos are considered black. Some are just highly mixed, and you can never define them as just one race or the other. So, with that said, I'm just curious to know what you all thought about this particular article. Drop a comment in the comment section. Like this video, share this video. Consider subscribing to this channel if you've seen more than a few videos that you got something from. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and ask you to come by to check out my next video.